Well, I hope you'll bear with me as I'm sentimental today. I'm thinking about homecoming week in Cataloochee, an area of the Great Smoky Mountains National Park, where families of European descent began to settle on a permanent basis beginning in the late 1830s. My own great 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 grandfather, John Wesley Hall, moved in there with his family just after the Civil War. And I've got wonderful memories of those homecoming gatherings there at Palmer Chapel Methodist Church. I even got to preach at one of those services back in 2012, one of the highlights of my life. And I'm grateful for those memories. And there are many people who visit that area of the park because they want to see the elk, or go hiking, or go fishing. But don't overlook the fact that at the edge of that one field, a church building stands, Palmer Chapel United Methodist Church. It's there because of the efforts largely of one man, Dr. Collins Howell, someone that most people, even in Haywood County, have not even heard of. That was his name. He didn't have a doctoral degree. His parents named him Doctor, and folks just called him Doc. Born in 1812, he died in 1905. His son Alden Howell opened the first bank in the town of Waynesville in the late 1800s. But Doc Howell was a believer in the Lord Jesus Christ. He had very little in the way of formal education, certainly no theological education, and yet he was a preacher of the gospel. He went about doing good, and he went about proclaiming Jesus. He lived on Jonathan Creek, had a farm and a grist mill at the area that is now occupied by Rock Hill Baptist Church, the former Rock Hill School. It's due to his efforts that the settler Levi Caldwell and his family were able to survive their first winter in Cataloochee Valley because Doc Howell gave them corn to grind into meal. He also, it is said, was responsible for directing the Palmer family into the valley when they were looking for a place to settle. Thankfully, his family recorded some of the history of Doc Howell's life, and so we're able to know something about him. For example, one piece of trivia is that he had the first Plymouth Rock chickens ever in Haywood County because his son sent them to him from California. He had a horse named Andy Jackson. He would ride that horse 10 to 15 miles across the mountain just to preach the gospel in the Cataloochee Valley, and he did it for no compensation. He was never paid any money for his efforts. He did it, he said, for the Lord. And he preached to the handful of people there. And so a Methodist church was organized, and that building stands in large part testimony to his gospel efforts to this very day. Some sayings that come down to us from him, again, thankfully for his family, a man who in his later years loved to go about humming the tunes to the hymns, Onward Christian Soldiers, and Stand Up for Jesus. Certainly two of my favorites. Quotes. Here's one. There's a barrel of wisdom and education and a lot of good law and religion right here in this Holy Bible and Webster's Dictionary. That's pretty good, isn't it? How about this one? If this country had more God-inspired, God-called preachers, then we would have no need for lawyers or jails either. That's what he said. His advice to young preachers. Put your trust in God, preach the Holy Bible, and cut your sermons short. That's not bad, is it? My favorite saying of his, though, is this one. Death is not the end of our life, but the beginning of an endless life beyond. And so, as I say, whether you find yourself in Cataloochee because you want to go hiking or fishing or looking at the elk, and you see that old church building over there in the field, maybe you'll think about old Doc Howell. Maybe you'll think as people meet there to sing, Shall We Gather at the River, that the saints of old are even now gathered at the river that flows from the throne of God. Maybe you'll recall the glorious faith that has once been delivered to all the saints. And you, like me, will give thanks for the goodly heritage that God has given us. And will count yourself among the followers of the Lord Jesus Christ, knowing that you have a future and a hope and a place by the river with Him. May God bless you as you think about that.